Hey there, welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel. My name is Gabrielle Celeste. I am an intuitive astrologist and I have conducted more than 600 readings. Can you even believe that? Since I started my business in 2022, so that's what, like an average of 200 readings a year, give or take. It's been busy. It's been so busy and such a blessing. And one of the things that came up for me when I was prepping this episode was what can I talk about that can be supportive to other intuitives that are familiar with my work? And I was like, boundaries. So I am a triple water sign. So it's definitely something that I am meant to master and to really learn and work with in this lifetime. And it's sometimes challenging, especially when I'm reading so much energy. And I think the motto for this episode is just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that can be really interpreted across the board, especially as an entrepreneur, as a practitioner, as a healer, as someone who's consistently holding space for others, and so forth. And so I think that we're really just going to get into some key topics that could be supportive, that can be applied to the topic that is boundaries across the board, whether or not you truly are a reader, a healer, an energetic practitioner, and so forth. And so, what I want to say is the art of reading energy, it's truly something that takes practice and something that you learn to familiarize yourself with, we'll call it that, the more that you do it and what comes up. And it's unavoidable in the sense that you can only really learn by doing it, just given the fact that it's intangible energy that is, especially when you're reading for another person. And with that being said, you are quite literally entering someone's auric field, their energetic field, hopefully with their permission. I think there's also something to be said about if you're reading energy unethically and if you are doing so without someone's permission, which is a whole nother topic. But boundaries with energy, sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. And there's a layer of importance and ethics to be upheld as a result of being a practitioner. And so, one thing that is a tall tale sign of you maybe being a little bit or just needing like improvement with your boundaries if you walk away from a session feeling quite drained, if you walk away from a session maybe not feeling entirely grounded, if you feel like something's kind of inhibited your field, that's probably a testament to your boundaries and where some type of reflection is required in terms of like what you could be doing better to not only protect yourself, but also empower your client to also protect themselves in session. So, one thing that I like to do, regardless of just any person that I'm reading for, is setting a container both at the beginning and the end of a session. And in that container, also empowering my client to protect themselves. And that can be as simple as, calling in divine protection, archangels, using cleansing white light, bubbling up into some type of protective auric field like a bubble, literally a bubble, and verbalizing that and stating intentions in terms of what you hope to get out of the reading as a practitioner. So, being a clear vessel for the messages that are coming in, and also asking your client to set an ethical intention as well. So that is one of the ways in which boundaries can come up, and you can see if your boundaries are maybe needing to be a little bit more enforced depending on how you're feeling, not only in the session, but especially after as well. I also think it's important to state that boundaries doesn't necessarily mean closing your heart, but instead it means that you're respecting not only your energy, but the energy of your clients. And also just stating that you're only available to their energy in that period of time that you're reading for them. So, a lot of this work, especially when it comes to energetic boundaries, really comes down to what you're stating and how you're saying it. Another way that you can have an idea of how your boundaries are going so far is to acknowledge if you're really keeping score of your time in a session. So, if you offered a 30-minute session and you're giving 45 minutes, or if you've offered an hour and your client's well past the hour and they're just talking, making sure you're saying something about it, as well as also maybe just charging them if your overtime enlist is something like you're willing to do. But if it's not a good feeling for you, and if you're feeling as though you've imposed on your own boundaries or they've imposed on your boundaries, acknowledging that and saying something about it, maybe not letting it happen consistently, is another way to approach the situation. And it's just going to help you over the course of time to really get strong with your boundaries within your business as a practitioner. And another and probably final thought to consider when conducting a reading and really inflicting your boundaries is to, so I shouldn't say inflict, I should say imposing your boundaries, is to not only state it, but to cleanse your energy and cut all types of cords with your client, whoever you've held space for, by grounding, by cleansing your auric field with the selenite sword, by using Palo Santo, something to really just disconnect, whether it's deep breathing, an intention with your eyes closed, using those remedies that I just spoke to, and tools. That's going to be some of those different ways and approaches that you can take to really set your boundaries, to cleanse your energy, to continue to stay healthy. Because sometimes what can happen is that maybe there's a cord that's still there between you and your clients. And it can be as simple as them just thinking about you a lot in the session after the fact because it was helpful and supportive. But because that energy can sometimes become a little bit more excessive, a cord can develop. So breaking away from that energy is really important. And it happens more times and more often than you think. So I also think one more thing is that using a crystal, keeping crystals around you, keeping crystals in your space, cleansing your space, those are all examples of energetic boundaries, more physical approaches to take, legit, tangible, if you will, and using those in order to just maintain a healthy environment, take care of your energy is really important. So I hope that was helpful, and it was a quick video on boundaries, and I hope to see you in the next one.